All right, guys, folks, I am so excited. My name is Bruce Stinger, and I am here with the Brandon Cobb out of Nashville, Tennessee area. So before I get into the questions and answers, a lot of you may know me. You know, I do a lot of residential redevelopments. I'm getting into the commercial side and Airbnb. I'm heavy into real estate, and it's always a pleasure to be able to just talk to another high performing individual. And I think you folks, if you listen carefully with both ears, you're going to get a lot out of this because Brandon has been through a lot, but nothing has stopped him. He's actually even excelled. So a little bit about Brandon Cobb. You may want to write that name down. It's C-O-B-B. Brandon Cobb. He is with what they call the House Buyin Guides, or known as HBG. It's a Nashville-based real estate investment company. And here's the cool thing about it. So Brandon, he's been successfully not only been able to sustain his business during the pandemic, but he's been able to grow it by double digits. And you're going to want to listen to what he has to say. It's just incredible what he's done during the pandemic and the chaos of 2020. How has he done it? You're going to want to listen to some of the way he answers some of the questions I'm going to throw at him. And a little bit of background about the House Buying Guys. Brandon started this company. Now, here's the cool thing about it. He also has a partner, a co-founder by the name of Vagiv Sadoff. And they've been wholesaling houses to other investors. They've been rehabbing properties, creating win-win solutions for investors, focusing on Middle Tennessee. Brandon and I were talking about this before the interview. I do deals all over the country, and I'm doing deals in Tennessee and in some parts of the area that nobody would know, but Brandon knew him. So this guy has a pulse on the market out there in Tennessee. Just incredible. Here's the cool thing about it, because I get a lot of questions from folks that say, gosh, Bruce, how do I get started? And I hear excuses. And that's really what they are when you say, I'm working a full-time job. Well, guess what, folks? Brandon began his corporate career in medical sales. Yes, he began his corporate career in medical sales and has successfully made the transition into full-time real estate as a real estate entrepreneur. So, and he did that in just a few short years. So there's no excuses. So it gives me great pleasure to say, welcome, Brandon. How are you doing, buddy?
Bruce, I'm fantastic. That has got to be the all-time best introduction ever. I feel like I've got a huge reputation to live up to. Thanks for the awesome introduction.
Well, brother, it's easy. It's easy when you have somebody at your caliber. So I'm excited to be able to go through some of the questions. And I'm excited to be able to take my pen and paper and put it to work as you start to go ahead and drop some gems here. Let's kind of just get right into it. What type of projects are you working on right now?
Yeah, we've got a lot of new construction in the pipeline. Our focus is on recession-resistant returns backed by real assets. One of the reasons why we focus on Middle Tennessee for our single-family portfolio, and we are focused on acquiring Class B, Class C value-add multifamily units in the Southeast. We just closed a pretty large apartment complex about 2 months ago. We've got another one in the hopper. We're waiting to see if this one's going to underwrite well and we can actually take on and tell the operator that we're ready to tackle it and raise the money for it. So we ended up creating a fund for that model, and we're starting up a fund for the single family new construction because we're going to try to bring some other people who can't actively jump into these things, but they've got some money that they need to keep busy.
Yeah, real estate's the place to put it. That's very good. So it sounds like you're doing a little bit of mixture, just like I am. You're doing both residential redevelopment and you're on the commercial side as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've got probably 22 new construction projects going, and then we've done one apartment acquisition this year, and we're hoping to do one or two more before the end is over.
Man, very, very good. Now, what a lot of folks don't know is that you started really off as a wholesaler and flipping properties. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition from when you first got started to what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I was doing medical device sales, and they love to pick people who they want their life to be their job, and that was me. I love working 24/7, and I'd won this award like rookie of the year. I'd done pretty decent, and then just out of the blue, I got let go from my job. Came as a shocker. They had hired me an associate rep to kind of help out with things, and trained him up, and then I just kind of sort of got let go. And that was a pretty pivotal moment for me because I learned that working for a big corporation, you're just a number. and they don't really care about your goals or your dreams. And the only person who's really truly going to care about that is you. So I became an accidental entrepreneur. I don't know that I ever honestly would have had the, the guts to just quit and like do it like that. But I learned something really interesting about myself is I perform best when I burn the bridges and don't have a safety net. So that's kind of how I sort of transitioned into real estate. I didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah. Now, you have a lot of listeners out there that are trying to make that same transition, and I know that literally you went from zero, I mean, literally zero to $9 million in gross revenue in just a short period of time. I think, what, 5 years? Is that right?
Yeah, about 5 years.
Wow. So what are some of the lessons for someone that was sitting in your seat 5 years ago, and they're like itching to make that move into real estate? What would you tell them? What lessons have you learned, and what advice would you give looking back?
Oh my gosh, I could talk for hours on lesson learned. I've probably made every single mistake in the book. In fact, if I have anything to contribute to my success, it'd be that I pretty much made all the failures before I started succeeding. At some point, you run out of bad decisions, and then the only ones left are the good decisions. It's kind of how I feel like this whole scaling process has been. But if you're sitting on the sidelines right now and you're trying to find a good reason to go into real estate, it's tough, right? You've got to have that why to get into it. And if you don't have that strong why behind it, then you're never going to make it, because it's going to be hard, and you need to have that why to hang on to during the tough times. So really, there's some great books you can read on creating your own vision and your own story and kind of what you want to get out of life. I think Start With Why is a really good book. When you can have your why behind you, that's going to help push you to make the decisions that you need. And if that's getting into real estate, you're going to have a lot of failures along the way, and having that why to hang on to and think about during those tough times is really what's going to get you through it.
That's nice. And I want to go a little bit deeper on that, because a lot of people, they're not even really sure why. I mean, most people don't even have a why, to be honest with you, Brandon, because they haven't really thought about it. And the next question I'm going to ask you kind of ties into that. When you said you were an accidental entrepreneur, I would disagree with that, because you did have a choice. When you got let go, you had a choice. You had a choice, and you could have went back to corporate America. You didn't. You chose not to do that. So can you talk a little bit, and that probably ties into the why, but can you talk a little bit about Brandon's why and how you decided when you were at that fork in the road to say, do I go and get another job in medical sales or something else? Because you had a great resume for what you were doing. Mm-hmm. How did you make that decision to say, I'm not going to do that? And I'm going to guess it ties into the why. So that's why I want to ask you that question. How did you make the decision not to go down that path of going back into corporate America, which is, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this would have made that choice, and how did you go ahead and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to follow my dream?
That's a great question. That's a really deep question. It stems from growing up. My mom and dad grew up in an era where they were taught to save your money, get a corporate job, work really hard, and hopefully you save up enough money where you can retire at the age of 65. And growing up, just seeing how hard my mom worked and how hard my dad worked. My mom, she was a school teacher, and she took off like work just because we were so much, right? Like 3 kids was a lot to keep up with sports and keeping us busy and keeping us out of trouble. And my dad worked really hard, and it was always like, go to the restaurant, but like you didn't buy the most expensive thing on the restaurant. Or when we went shopping, we never shopped at really nice places. Like everything was like when an iPhone came out, I remember like my dad, don't buy any apps, right? It was always like, how do you save your money and how do you just pinch pennies everywhere? And man, that was ingrained with me from a young age. Yep. And I remember when I did finally start my business, like having to spend money on things, like that was a pretty big mental block for me that was formed during that childhood. But for me, it was, I didn't want that life. Like, my mom and dad, because they didn't know any better, kept shoving this life down my throat, like what they wanted, because they wanted me to be happy. And they thought that for me to be happy, that I needed a safe, nice corporate job that paid the bills, good insurance, and then you just, get married, have kids, and live the rest of your life. Like that just seemed so mundane to me. I needed variety. I wanted to learn, do something new. And I didn't want to have to show up somewhere every single day and take orders from somebody and just be boxed into this lifestyle. I wanted to be able to have the freedom. I wanted to build a business that created the freedom that I needed to build the life that I want.
I like it. And then now talk to our listeners about the fear, because I know there was that fear. Every time I make a decision, even on acquiring another property, there's just a little bit of that fear. How did you get past that fear that was facing you to say, you know what, I'm going for this?
It's kind of like going through I remember the first big decisions that I made, like, oh my God, I had some huge mental blocks. One of the biggest things I contribute to my success was me paying for education, investing in myself. And I spend tons of that now that I know that it works. But that was probably the scariest thing. I think the biggest purchase I ever made was in, a group of people who were doing what I was doing as a mastermind, if you will. And to drop that kind of money and not really sure if you're going to get it back, it's a lot of money, right? It's a pretty large chunk of my income, annual income, when I was doing medical device sales. So what really helped was seeing other people who were doing it and doing it successfully, and then getting that advice to make that purchase from them. I'm not a smart guy. I got like a 19 on my ACT, right? Like, I got into college because I had a good GPA, because I worked really hard and had a lot of volunteer work and a lot of sports, right? Like, I'm not a very good test taker. I'm not a super intelligent guy, but I'm smart enough to realize that I'm resourceful. I try to put myself in those rooms with people who are doing the things that I want to be doing, and learning from them and trying to add value to them. And when I started doing that, and they're like, you need to make this decision, this big purchase you're going to make, like, do it. And I saw later, I was like, all right, having people that I could look at and see validating what the decisions that I was scared to make, and they were where I wanted to be. That's really what helped me make a lot of the big decisions.
That's huge, man. I always say, people will say, gosh, Bruce, I don't have the resources. I said, that's okay. If you don't have the resources, you have to be resourceful. Just what you just said. I love it. I love it. So let me ask you this, Brandon, and I know that you and I are going to connect, and we're going to do business together. What are you looking for in your business? Are you looking for other investors to invest? Are you looking for, other investors to sell properties to? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. Right now, we're in a capital raising phase, man. We've got a fund coming out for single family new construction in Nashville. We're going to have a lot of people getting into the game on that. We're leveraging that to buy a lot of new construction properties here in Middle Tennessee. A lot of it's going to be affordable housing. We've got another fund we've set up. We just got into apartment complexes this year, honestly, in the commercial multifamily space. We've partnered with a world-class operator who's been managing and buying these things for over 30 years. They've been through multiple recessions. Those are the types of strategic partners that I'm looking for right now to align my business with. They don't have time to go raise the capital, right? Their business is centered around finding and underwriting these multifamily assets. And then, our firm is the capital raising side. So we're inviting people to join us on the journey to help them reach financial independence. If you've got that full-time job and, you don't have time to go build a business, but you want to keep your money busy and get true passive income that is truly passive, where it's not taking up your time, you're not trading time for money, it might be a good idea for us to have a conversation and talk.
I love it. I love it. Listen up, guys, because I'm going to ask Brandon for what you guys have been waiting for: contact information. How would someone, whether it's an investor or someone that's looking to buy one of the properties, how would they get in touch with you, Brandon?
We've got a ton of free content on our website. You can get to hbgcapital.net, and there's educational resources that'll educate you on, single family home lending. There's a free ebook, 100 questions passive investors should be asking before investing, that you can pick up. It's free. All of it's just designed to educate you. No matter what type of investment you're looking at in real estate, we hope to add some kind of value to you. So you can go to that website, check it out.
And give that website one more time, Brandon, please.
It's hbgcapital.net.
There you go, guys. There you go. So Brandon, during the pandemic, there was a lot of fear, and you could almost smell it in the air. And I took that as an opportunity to, people were talking about cutting back and cutting costs. And I took it as an opportunity to step down on the pedal. And I actually expanded my team for the marketing side. And I told them they had a mission to go out there and hunt for properties for owners that were scared, that were looking to go ahead and offload properties. And so I took it as an opportunity. Can you tell the audience what you did during the pandemic on the way that you scaled your business?
Yeah, so last year was just huge for us. It was so funny. because we didn't think it was going to be, because you think COVID, I'm like, here's the crash, right? Here it comes. But over the years, you read all these books and you listen to the advice of the people who are a lot smarter than you. And there's one thing, and everyone's heard this from Warren Buffett. He says, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. Well, we had lived in this economy where everyone had been so greedy for a while. It's like, all right, when are things going to change? And they did. And everyone got super fearful. And so I was like, well, what would Warren Buffett do? It's that simple. And everyone was sitting on the sidelines. Everyone was panicking. We bought more property from like Q2, Q3 last year than we ever have.
Yep.
And we just bought it at a massive discount. We said, okay, great. Market's going to take let's throw like a 30, I think we said a 30% decline is what we're going to kind of expect in 6 months. 6 months is kind of our average turnaround time on a lot of our properties. So we're like, we can get in that. What kind of decline do we think we're going to see? We estimated that, based on the macros, what we're looking at in Tennessee, it's going to be a pretty strong market. So probably wasn't going to get hit as hard as everywhere else. And so we said, hey, 30%. So all of our offers changed pretty much overnight. We just started making offers 30% less of what the retail value was. And we bought so much stuff. And when we exited it, not only did we not see that 30% decline, as we all know, but the market actually picked up by the time we sold it. And it was all gravy. And it was fantastic for us.
That's fantastic. Now, Brandon, as you and I discussed, I have several different properties out there in the area, but you're the expert in that area. How does it look for commercial? When I say commercial, I'm talking about, apartment complexes in that area. Is the Nashville area plentiful for that type of investment?
I mean, it's huge. You want to go to the areas, especially where there's affordability, right? The problem in the Davidson County, like core, like right around Nashville, is like land's just so expensive, right? And there's so much appreciation. You have a lot of people jumping in the game that are honestly, they're investing off appreciation, not necessarily the discount you get when you buy in. So they're kind of playing that appreciation game, and it's been working for years, which kind of scares me a little bit. Okay. So I think you're going to see some kind of retract when and if the market ever does retract. But as far as like Springfield goes, like what you're talking about, like Robertson County, that's all affordable housing, man. Like where you're at, like Clarksville, Robertson, like Gallatin, a lot of those homes are $250,000 and less. I don't think the economy is going to touch you guys.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. And you said this a couple of times about affordable housing. I get a lot of comments, when a lot of the off-market opportunities come from people because they look at me, not just as an investor, but as someone that's uplifting the area. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you share the same belief.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I understand your question. What exactly is it?
When you get opportunities, people are always asking, hey, how did you get those off-market opportunities? A lot of times you get, and you're the resident expert in that particular area in Nashville. A lot of times people will look at you as, someone who's uplifting the area because you're going in there, you're fixing up the homes, you're buying homes that are distressed properties. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So as far as how we find them, like we market to distress, right? Like we've done Facebook ads to specific filters where the demographics are pointing to distress, tax delinquent, evictions, absentee, foreclosures, probate, all those lists. We mail lists, we've done cold calling, we've hit pretty much every marketing avenue you can. So we attribute a lot of that. And then networking. I personally go out and I'm meeting with a lot of the players in the game. Who are the agents moving distressed property? Who are the agents moving land? A lot of wholesalers. Who are they, right? I want to make sure I meet them, put a name with a face, network, show them, hey, I'm an authority figure, right? I can close, right? That's your main thing. When you market a property, you want to make sure this investor can close. I'm your guy, because we bought a bunch of stuff from wholesalers. We understood the needs of wholesalers because we used to wholesale a lot of properties. And so being able to reverse engineer that and satisfy all those needs on an upfront meeting, that they became we became the go-to for a lot of these wholesalers that buy them. As far as uplifting the neighborhoods, neighbors love us because we're usually taking that crappy piece of property that's an eyesore and we're turning it into like the beautiful swan in the neighborhood, and then usually setting a new comp in the neighborhood, and all the neighbors love that because then their appreciation for their home just went up. So I feel like we've got a pretty strong why and what we do, the people that we help, the neighborhoods that we help, our investors that make money. And then, as a consequence, we obviously make money. So it really is a beautiful thing developing the neighborhoods because everybody wins. And that's what we want.
Yeah, I can tell your passion definitely shines through for sure. And everything that you said there in terms of how you're finding off-market properties, that's a lot of work. And here's the thing, folks. I mean, what Brandon's talking about, a lot of you don't want to do this. You don't want to go out there and network. You don't want to go out there and meet the people that you need to meet. You don't want to go out there and market like you should. And Brandon, you're doing it all for these people in Nashville, and you're gaining this huge reputation as the go-to guy. So can you talk a little bit? Because I know we have investors on the call and they're listening closely. Tell us a little bit about that fund. You mentioned the new fund that you started. Can you talk a little bit about that for investors? And what's the goal of that fund? And is it only open to accredited investors? Brandon, did I lose you? Brandon?
Hi, Brandon. Are you still there?
Hey, I'm here now. I'm not sure. It just kicked me out and then I went and plugged back in. So maybe it was my connection. I apologize.
No worries. So did you hear the question though, Brandon? Or you want me to repeat it?
Halfway through. Do you mind repeating it?
Yeah, no worries. So a lot of investors, we have a lot of investors that are listening on the call, and they don't want to do all the work that you just mentioned, the market and everything else, hunting for these deals. You're doing it already. You're the expert. You know what a good deal looks like, and that's not always that easy to get that type of expertise. The new fund that you just created, what's the goal? What's the goal of that new fund, and is it open only to accredited investors?
Yeah, great question. So the new fund is aligned on our investment thesis, which is recession-resistant returns backed by real assets. So the single-family market is it's so hot. It is really, really hot. And so we try to start preparing for the worst when there's no signs of it. And so we want to start transitioning quite a bit of capital into these Class B, Class C multifamily assets that have value add opportunity that historically perform really well in market recessions. It's open to more than accredited investors. It depends on the fund that we set up for specific apartment complexes. We usually do one fund per apartment. So depending on if we set it up as a 506C or a 506B, one fund might be an accredited investors only. But the past one that we did was a non-accredited. We just need to make sure that there's some kind of pre-existing relationship, and we can kind of coach you through how to do that.
What's the minimum investment that you require, Brandon?
Yeah, so I can't speak on that as far as like future deals go, but I can tell you in the past, on all of our past investment opportunities, investors have chosen to put a minimum of $50,000.
Okay, sweet. Very, very good. And Brandon, your contact information for those investors one more time, please.
Yeah, you can reach out to us on hbgcapital.net. There's a form, just fill it out. Amanda will get in touch with you. And if you want to schedule something, feel free to reach out and she'll get us set up.
Sweet. And is there anything else you'd like to add, Brandon?
No, man, this has been fantastic. You've been an awesome host. Are there any questions that you want to ask that you haven't been asking me?
Well, I think I always kind of keep the listener in mind, and we have two sets of listeners, right? We have those that want to do what you're doing, and we have those that want to invest in the projects that you're investing in. And I will say this, folks, when you talk about focus, there's a level of expertise that just it's off the charts. I know with Brandon. So if you're looking to invest in the Nashville area, and Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the area that you're only investing in right now is the Nashville area?
For the single family fund, yeah, we're investing in Nashville, Middle Tennessee, and then we're focused on the Southeast as far as our multifamily acquisition fund.
Well, there you go. Well, for the investors that are out there, I mean, Brandon and his team, they're dominating that area. So if you want an opportunity to get into a hot area, and I know from experience, Nashville is a hot area, going to want to reach out to Brandon. Brandon, it has been a pleasure. And I know you and I will do some business as well. So thanks for being so gracious with your time and taking some time to share your experience with the listeners as well.
Bruce, thanks for the introduction and the hospitality, man. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
All right, my brother. Likewise.